What is up, everybody? It's your boy, Isaac of the Dead, and we're about to react to a video from one of my favorite YouTubers. His name is Nerdrotic. I know him as Gary from Nerdrotic. Some of y'all might know him, some of y'all may not. And in the last couple weeks, there's been new rumors and circulations coming out about the Tolkien getting bashed, and I haven't kept up with it as much, but to be fair, I don't pay attention to losers who like to bash Tolkien, because most of the time that they just want to try and besmirch and defame the good professor's name. But if there's other people that know better than me, it's guys like Nerdrotic and George the Giant Slayer and European lore. These guys definitely pay attention to this stuff far better than I do, so we're going to react to Nerdrotic's video. Let's see how it goes. Shout out Nerdrotic.
Never before has any voice uttered the words of that tongue here in Imladris.
Do not ask your pardon, Master Elrond, for the black speech of Mordor may yet be heard in every corner of the West.
Nerdrotic.com.
Hi, Gavanya, and you over 1 million men and women of the West and the 40% who haven't subscribed yet. Not a year goes by without some hack writer from the Access Media or hackademic attacking our beloved Professor John Ronald Reuel Tolkien.
Happens all the time. I'm not here to cover it as much as I'd like to, but that's why I'm reacting to this video.
And this year is no different. From the Telegraph, students shall not pass unless they accept Lord of the Rings is offensive. University course suggests Tolkien's treatment of evil characters follows a tradition of anti-African antipathy. That's AAA to you and me. Generally, academics and activists, and quite frankly, I don't know the difference between the two, so we'll just call them people who don't like to have fun and people who are no fun to be around. Hate Lord of the Rings. And the attacks on Tolkien go back to the times when he was alive. But in recent times, it was made demonstrably worse by Amazon. You know, the company that started out selling books when its owner, Jeff Bezos, decided he wanted to make his own Game of Thrones and bought Lord of the Rings, which is funny because right now, Game of Thrones, along with Harry Potter, DC Comics, and the core part of Lord of the Rings that Jeff Bezos actually wants is potentially for sale. Anyway, Jeff Bezos is the Rings of Power, you know, the billion-dollar disaster and failure that's basically a vanity project right now, gave the activists absolutely everything they wanted. Unfortunately, there weren't enough of them to watch, but it did stir the conversation back up again. 5 years ago, I made a video called They Are Coming for Lord of the Rings, and it was...
And I was there. I watched it. I saw that old video. I remember.
It was a simple warning that the same thing we've seen happen to Star Wars, Star Trek, and Doctor Who was going to happen to the Professor's secondary world because the activists have been circling this mythology for a long time. And once they sunk their teeth into it with the help of their Hollywood corporate overlords, if anyone didn't like it, well, they were the problem. Particularly the readers of Tolkien who wanted to see the Professor's work adapted authentically. And in their infinite wisdom, the creators of the show decided to make the fans of Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit, The Silmarillion, and all the works of Professor Tolkien the enemy. Responding to the backlash they absolutely knew they were going to get, Rings of Power producer and Bad Reboot reject Lindsay Weber famously said, "It felt only natural to us that an adaptation of Tolkien's work would reflect what the world actually looks like."
Go back to the book, go back to the book, go back to the book.
God, I hate those people. I hate it when those people said that shit, man.
EVE Online is a vast universe.
Completely ignoring the fact that Amazon paid $250 million to get access to a built-in audience that really enjoyed a world meticulously built by J.R.R. Tolkien and what he thought it actually looked like. Sure.
Not to mention, and this is something I learned from Gary as well, they only were able to get the access to the appendices of what I believe was Return of the King, so it's not like they could actually properly adapt what they were trying to do with the story that they were trying to tell with the characters that they had, because they only had the rights to the appendices and not the Silmarillion. That's what I was under the impression of. Again, I can't disagree with anything that Gary's saying, simply because he's on point. He's on point, far better than I could ever be, at least at this point in my YouTube career.
Runners J.D. Payne and Patrick McKay also responding to the backlash called the fans patently evil. Two Dwarf of Color actress Sophia Nomvetti stating that her role and the Rings of Power are a necessary redress of balance in Tolkien.
Everyone was cast because they were the absolute best person for the role, and to be part of a redress of balance within this world is an honor.
And the rest is history, and by all accounts, the subversive work that is the Rings of Power should have been canceled, but the only reason it's still around is so Jeff Bezos won't be embarrassed. I would argue continuing to make it is more embarrassing. And of course, there's all the Access Media articles and academic research, from racially stereotyping in the works of Tolkien to a new Lord of the Rings prequel quietly confronts an uncomfortable legacy. How Amazon's The Rings of Power prequel grapples with the deeply ingrained ideas of racial difference and racial determinism in J.R.R. Tolkien's world. Or the infamous Dear Tolkien fans, black people exist. And who can forget this book published in 2022, Tolkien, Race and Racism in Middle-earth by Robert Stewart? Well, apparently everybody forgot about it, considering it only has 3 reviews on Amazon and it's sitting at a 2.6 and it costs $93.43.
Jeez, whoa, overpriced for garbage. Overpriced garbage.
Going back to 2002 from The Guardian, Race and Race. What with the dark skin, broad faces, and dreadlocks, it's a wonder Tolkien didn't give his baddies a natural sense of rhythm, says John Yett, examining Middle-earth's suspect racial undertones, where he states multiple paragraphs down.
Hold on,
Perhaps I better come out and say it. The Lord of the Rings is racist. So this is nothing new under the 2 lamps, the 2 trees, or the Son of Arda. But this
good references there. I like how a lot of these activists like to call people like Gary and like myself and many others who are Tolkien fans or just regular fans in general, racist and sexist and misogynist and all that nonsense. And yet they're coming up with that shit and they're injecting it into Tolkien's mythology where it wasn't there before. It's people are lunatics.
This one takes it a step further because it's an actual course at the University of Nottingham. And that course comes off as an exploration of the actions of Robin Hood from the perspective of the Sheriff of Nottingham.
Call off Christmas.
Once again from the Telegram, and we got to give them a little credit here on this headline. Students shall not pass unless they accept Lord of the Rings is offensive. University course suggests Tolkien's treatment of evil characters follows a tradition of anti-African antipathy. A university is teaching students that J.R.R. Tolkien demonizes people of color in the Lord of the Rings books. A history module called Decolonizing Tolkien and Others, taught at the University of Nottingham, uses a text that says orcs and other dark-skinned characters in the trilogy are the victims of ethnic chauvinism.
No offense, but it sounds like some fucking commie gobbledygook.
Exactly. R.I.P. Norm Macdonald. That sounds to me like we was Lord of the Kings. We was Lord of the Rings. That's what it sounds like to me. It's all like we was kings. Europeans were never actually white, says the weird Marxist take over fucking African people. Jeez, man. These people, they're insane, and there's no reasoning with them.
Dr. Oneka Nubia, a historian and writer who leads the module, who's made plenty of appearances on the BBC and has put forth the narrative that medieval England had towns and cities as diverse as modern London, which is absurd, argues that Eastern races in the fictional realm of Middle-earth are depicted as evil, while fairer-skinned peoples of the West aren't shown as virtuous. I mean, except for all the fairer-skinned peoples who weren't so virtuous, like dwarves who were not evil but could be famous assholes, like the petty dwarf Mim who betrayed Túrin, or the dwarves that killed Thingol. And yes, despite what Amazon and their paid shills will say about dwarves, generally they're considered fair yet ruddy. And as far as elves are concerned, there's Feanor, whose actions led to the burning of the ships, and the kinslaying, which was the first time elves killed other elves. The sons of Feanor, who killed a lot of elves, or Maeglin, who betrayed Gondolin to Morgoth. Then there's the men of the West. Where do I even start? Maybe with the Númenóreans, who were sacrificing humans to Morgoth. The black Númenóreans, and no, they weren't black. And they were, deep in the past, oppressive rulers of realms like Umbar and Harad. Put simply, it wasn't black and white. There was a lot of moral complexity to Tolkien's works, and not every fair-skinned character was virtuous. And that's just scratching the surface. Now, obviously, I'm no Tolkien scholar or expert. I'm just a fan. But imagine if a real scholar or even a hardcore lorehead took this clown's course. It'd be hilarious. In reference to decolonizing Tolkien in academia, decolonizing usually means re-examining or moving away from white Western viewpoints. So let me get this straight, Dr. Onyeka Nubia. You want to move away from the white Western viewpoint of Professor John Ronald Reuel Tolkien, an Englishman who wanted to write a mythology for England from his English viewpoint. I mean, by all means, move away from it. But why would you want to waste your time doing that? Well, because it's not about re-examining or decolonizing. It's about deconstructing. To state
Exactly the point. Gary is always on point. I don't even have to talk. I just got to play the video. I don't even have to talk.
the obvious, because somehow the academics got it in their brains that you can fight discrimination with discrimination. But it doesn't end there. In the module's core text, Dr. Onyeka writes that maligned peoples include Easterlings, Southrons, and men from Harad. The trilogy also features the dark-skinned orcs, evil creatures that do the bidding of Sauron, known as the Dark Lord. Now, the article says the trilogy, and I certainly hope you're not talking about the Peter Jackson films as much as they are the greatest trilogy ever made. They are not the most accurate adaptation of the professor's work.
Right.
Or are you just focusing on the Lord of the Rings books, leaving out The Hobbit, The Silmarillion, The Children of Hurin, The Fall of Gondolin, The Lost Tales, etc.? Yes, armies of Easterlings and Harad fought for Sauron, and yes, their complexions matched the regions they lived in because Tolkien accounted for that. You know who also fought for Sauron? The aforementioned fair race of the Númenóreans, some of whom became the Nazgul. But as far as orcs are concerned, they're creatures who are humanoid, but not human, with mostly sallow skin. So I don't care what background you're from. If you see them as black people, you told on yourself. The orcs slash goblins were created by Morgoth slash Melkor as a mockery of the elves, who were created along with everything else by the one true god Eru Ilúvatar, who are described by J.R.R. Tolkien in the often cited for multiple reasons Letter 210, a letter discussing a film treatment to Forrest J. Ackerman. They are or were squat, broad, flat-nosed, sallow-skinned with wide mouths and slant eyes. In fact, degraded and repulsive versions of the two Europeans' least lovely Mongol types. Now, the important bit there before he says Mongols is two Europeans. That is Tolkien acknowledging that that wasn't probably the nicest thing. So if anybody has a beef, it's the Asians. But if we're going to be judging things from history and we're going to say Mongol, that would be from Mongolia, say Genghis Khan, which means about 0.5% of the male population of planet Earth could be offended by that remark.
The problem with it is Genghis was a big murderer.
He was quite
I suppose he was a bit murdered.
He did 34 million. There's another problem as well. Call it rapey.
A remark made in 1958. Many will make that the underlying thesis of Tolkien in all of his works being racist. But that is the deliberately disingenuous argument you will get from modern academics, particularly when it comes to Tolkien. Judging a man's perspective from the early to mid 20th century, that was completely acceptable, by the way, on modern day standards, and having to dig to find something, while completely ignoring all the times that J.R.R. Tolkien said he was against things like racial doctrine and those National Socialists. But the professor shouldn't feel alone, because Dr. Onyeka Nubia also went after C.S. Lewis, Milton, and Shakespeare. But again, this is just the latest salvo against the good professor from the disingenuous and evil academics. But this reminds me of the worst case of betrayal, the Tolkien Society. Harkening back to their seminar in 2021, coincidentally, a year before The Rings of Power came out, so I'm sure this was totally a coincidence that they had seminars like this. Gondor in Transition, a brief introduction to transgender realities in The Lord of the Rings. Not sure how they managed to get a 30-minute seminar out of something that wasn't a reality anywhere within the works of the devout Catholic professor.
I remember. I was there when that happened. I remember when that happened.
Is this new devilry?
And yes, these are real, from the real Tolkien Society, an educational charity and literary society devoted to the study and promotion of the life and works of the author, established in 1969.
But wait! There's more!
The problem of pain, portraying physical disability in the fantasy of J.R.R. Tolkien, The Invisible Other, Tolkien's dwarf women, and the feminine lack, projecting Indian myths, culture, and history onto Tolkien.
As you notice, all of these have the comments turned off from the Tolkien Society.
Tolkien's worlds, philosophy, indigeneity, identity, and anti-racism. We're atheists, agnostics, and animists. Oh my. Or how about this one? Something mighty queer, destabilizing cis-hetero anonormativity in the works of Tolkien.
I believe Robin Reed went to Texas A&M. Shout out my Aggies. That was disappointing to find out about that. Whenever I found out about Robin Reed being at Texas A&M and hearing that people actually went to go and take lessons from her, is it her or he? Doesn't matter. I was like, nonsense. Get that shit out of here. Get that shit out of here.
What? This might be my favorite. Pardoning Saruman, the queer in Tolkien's The Lord of the Rings. For those of you who may or may not know from the books, Saruman the White later identifies himself as Saruman of many colors, which could be interpreted as wearing a rainbow flag.
Ha! Gay!
Ready to win big with Zinn? In the Win with Zinn sweepstakes, you could win $100,000 or one of 5,000.
And when he reveals himself, Gandalf's response pretty much sums up everything happening here.
For I am Saruman the Wise, Saruman of many colors.
I like white better.
It serves as a beginning. White cloth can be dyed, the white page can be overwritten, and the white light can be broken.
In which case it is no longer white. And he that breaks a thing to find out what it is has left the path of wisdom.
Let's not forget back in February of 2023, The Spectator reported that a unit within Prevent, the UK Home Office's counter-extremism program, had drawn up several lists of dangerous books. It claimed that these works could prompt or indict support for the far right or horror of centrist horrors, Brexit. Among the specific works mentioned were novels by titans of English literature, including George Orwell, Joseph Conrad, C.S. Lewis, and J.R.R. Tolkien. So I'd like to remind everyone who tries to take down this English legend, prolific author, and all-around good human being that the rest of the world does not agree with you, including you, Dr. Onyeka Nubia. Considering Lord of the Rings has been translated into 57 different languages and has at least 87 translations. It's sold over 150 million copies, making it the third or fourth best-selling book of all time, and if you combine it with The Hobbit, that's 250 million copies. Then there's all the other books and media, and of course the films, the Lord of the Rings trilogy and the Hobbit trilogy, which have a combined worldwide gross of $5.875 million without adjusting for inflation. Based on that data alone, which was pretty easy to look up, it appears that despite what some producers at Amazon and angry academics think, any detractors of the professor and his works are in the minuscule minority. But they're not going to stop, and they tell on themselves, because when we have a course at the University of Nottingham from the professor's home country called Decolonizing Tolkien, again, decolonizing in academia usually means re-examining or moving away from white Western viewpoints. This isn't a scholarly study or exploration or even a re-examination. What it is colonizing Tolkien, because students of the course in Nottingham will also learn to repopulate the canon of British myth and legend.
This is exactly what these activists do. They try to create their own spaces. They find out that they're miserable pieces of shit. And then they're like, oh, well, we should invade other spaces like maybe women's sports or maybe somebody else's bathroom. Or how about, I'm a fan of this thing. I'm a fan of Tolkien. I'm a fan of Lord of the Rings. So I'm going to interject my identity and my ideology and my personal belief system into that so that I can feel comfortable and fuck everybody else who was here pre-established. These people are colonizers. They like to invade franchises. They like to invade fandoms. They like to invade spaces that they do not particularly naturally belong to, and then twist those spaces, twist them to their narrative, push other people out and force them to create their own spaces. They are the invaders. They are the colonizers. They are the cultural vultures. They are the culture vultures.
To state the obvious, this isn't about adding to something or building something new. It's about destroying something. Best summed up by the Culture Explorer on X, and I couldn't have said it better myself. Forget education. This is cultural demolition. The goal isn't to re-examine the past. It's to poison it, to strip stories of their meaning until they become something you're ashamed to love. First, they redefine the words. Then they rewrite the history. And finally, they tell you what you're allowed to believe. This isn't a debate about orcs. It's a war over who owns your culture. And the key to destroying a culture is problematizing its past. And Lord of the Rings is just one more monument to tear down. And why do they hate Tolkien? Well, I don't think I'm breaking any news here. It's his conservative values. He was a devout Catholic, a proud Englishman, an anti-modernist, and he had a deep distrust of large-scale government, values that are antithetical to the ideology of the modern activist and academic. And the timelessness and popularity of this story that will outlast them all serves as a constant reminder that nobody likes their ideas and nobody thinks they're any fun. But Tolkien's works and the values they represent is exactly the reason the vast majority of people, including this guy who is neither Catholic or English, love him.
Nerdrotic.com.
If you like what you heard, please like, share, and subscribe. If you didn't like what you heard, I think
Somebody's calling me. Let me know what y'all think in the comments down below. That was Gary from Nerdrotic. Love Gary. Somebody's calling me. I can't stand up and answer it right now yet. But I love Gary from Nerdrotic. Go give him a subscribe. He says all this stuff better than I possibly could. I'm just here to share his work because I have a great appreciation for it. And yeah, let me know what y'all think in the comments down below. I've said my piece. I respect Professor Tolkien. I respect Gary from Nerdrotic. I respect all Tolkien fans. I'm not going to let these activists try and take this away from us. Y'all have a good day.